Hello guys, so in this video we are going to look at how to make off a bit of steel wire armour for your metal conduit build. Now steel wire armour is exactly as it sounds. It is a bit of cable with some steel armour around the outside of it. Where we would use this is for cable that are worried about they might become punctured. For example, underground you might use some form of steel wire armoured cable. Sometimes around the outside of a building you would use steel wire armour cable again. You guys have got to fit a bit coming from your T conduit box down to a light switch. You'll have to make off your glands, but this video is going to assume that you already have made these. We're just going to focus on how to actually make off the steel wire armour onto these glands. So let's look at how to make off our two ends of our steel wire armour cable. So first off, you've got to measure how much you need. The rules you've used for all your other circuits still apply. You would go from the back of your containment, your enclosure, your device, to the back of whatever, far side to far side, and then add on a little bit extra. Now for me, I'm going to say I want a length of 450, which is what I'd already cut. Your lecturer might say different, or alternatively, to save the college money, it might be you're asked to cut it one length, then you cut it down, you pass it to the next person, so the length is dictated by the actual size of material we have left. Purpose of that is just to save the college money because steel wire armour is very expensive. So once we've got our length, you need to measure and cut it. Offer up your bit of steel wire armour, hold the tape to the end of it, put it down, and once you're happy with it, hold your hand to where you want to cut it. With steel wire armour, we're going to have to cut it with a hacksaw. And to help you, you can use a vise. Now, do not put any type of cable inside a vise. That's not what I'm saying. You open the vise slightly and you set the cable on top of it. So, we set it on top, put your thumb to the side, so it's like that. If you want to use your thumb to a guide, do not do that. And when you're cutting, sawing, rubber, metal, safety glasses on. So I would do that and start cutting. I've already got the length that I have done. So moving on, what do we do next? You would offer up your cable to where you want it. So I decide I want that much extra. Even if I didn't have this side done, it would be the same. I decide I want this much extra. That also leaves me this much extra on this side. Consider both sides. And now we want to mark, we've got a good trick for this. We want to mark where we want to get rid of the wire armour and where we just want to get rid of the outer rubber sheathing to make off our wire gland. Our steel wire armour gland. So the trick for that, when you're using this size of steel wire armour, you go to the outside of where it is. So have a look at it. I don't want to go over the threads. I want to go over the collar of my gland. So here, you can see the kind of collar of my gland there, and then it goes to the threads. I don't want the steel wire armour going over the threads. I just want them to go to that kind of collar. It'll make sense when you get a shot of it yourself. So offer it up, I get an idea of what kind of length I want. You could try and do it with a tape, but I think sometimes eyeballing it actually gives you a better idea how much you need. Go for that. Right. Now, trick is, take a bit of tape, put that around that mark. So you want your tape to be going away. So for me, my device is here in front of me. I want the tape to be going away from where I had my hand. So we decided where I wanted my steel wire armour to go to, the actual wire armour to go to, and then the outside of that tape is going to be where I want to get rid of the sheathing. Now, how we get rid of the wire armour, I'm going to take a junior hacksaw and I'm going to lightly go round the rubber sheathing, just scoring into the wire armour, not cutting through. I don't want to cut through the wire armour. I want to go around it with a hacksaw so I can then wiggle it and get rid of it. There is tools to make this easier, but we're a poor wee college, and if you can do it with a junior hacksaw and a knife, you can do it with anything. So glasses on, and just use my junior hacksaw, same rules apply to a junior hacksaw as a hacksaw, and cut around the bottom mark where I want to get rid of the steel wire armour. So now I'm happy. I've managed to cut into the threads all the way around, or cut into the steel wire armour all the way around that cable. I need to get rid of the outer rubber sheathing from that point. To do so, we're going to use a knife. In different campuses, they might not want you using a knife. Here, you'll be using the knife under supervision of your lecturer or your tech. When you use a knife, I'll only have the blade out when I need it. I'm going to put the blade back into the knife when I'm done with it. And also, maybe only one in the class. Constant supervision, cut away from yourself as well. So don't ever cut facing towards yourself, cut away from yourself. If you need to cut at the side of yourself, stand away from it. Don't stand where you could accidentally slip and cut yourself. So, I've got the marks where I've cut into the steel wire armour. I take my knife, cutting away from myself, I cut down the rubber sheathing. So now what I'm left with is my steel wire armours. Now if I've cut into these enough, and it can be difficult, you could be going into a consumer unit or something, it could be above your head. It is tough sometimes. But if we've cut into them enough, if we start to wiggle it, hopefully they should break off. There's a couple here I'm not happy with, so I'm going to need to bite into them a wee bit more with the hacksaw. Be very careful that if you have to do this, that you don't accidentally cut into the sheathing, the white sheathing underneath. Just cut the steel wire armour. So now we've got rid of all the steel wire armours. We need to get rid of a little bit more of the rubber sheathing, but we don't want to get rid of the steel wire armour underneath. Now, here I want to make sure you guys cut away from yourself and don't hurt yourselves. Manipulate the cable as you need to cut around that line, the second line. If I was on site, I'm in the habit of holding the cable against my thumb and rolling it around the knife. If you choose to do that out on site, it's your business, but in the college, I'm going to avoid trying to use that practice, and I'd like you to as well. So I'm just going to run my knife around the top, that line, making sure I'm not at risk of getting cut if the knife should slip. Once I've cut all the way around that outer side of the tape, then cut down it again. Careful at the end that you don't accidentally slip and cut the white sheathing underneath. And as I was holding it there, I wasn't putting pressure on the knife to make sure I don't cut my finger. Now we're left with a steel wire armour exposed to the right length. That's to be tricked with the tape. And we've got enough flex there to make off my light when it comes to it. Now, I've made a grave mistake here. What would have been better was making sure I have my shroud and I have the nut to go into my gland on before I did that. It's super important that we put them on now before we do the next step, or else you're in for a nightmare. But you can actually put it on. It's a good idea putting it on before we even start making the offer gland. You could use like a cable clip or something to hold it away from you. Now, I've got a sheath, a shroud that I've already cut and I've already got to size. I made it earlier. If you get one that's not been made off, it's not got a hole at the back. Now, don't take snips and cut it with snips. You need to make sure it's round at the back. If you take it with snips, it will deform and it's not quite the right shape. So what to do, take your cable before it's terminated, put the shroud upside down, and then at the outside of where you can see it will distort the shroud, the outside of that, you would hacksaw around that, or you could use a knife. In the college, I'd probably get you to hacksaw around it. I've got one I'm already happy with, so I'm going to put that over. Shroud first. Once I've got my shroud over, take the nut for it, put that over as well. Now the next step is why I was adamant that you need to make sure that you don't accidentally forget to put your shroud on before this step. Then you really will struggle. Take your cable, think about what way the threads are going, and I like to try and roll it so it's going to go with the threads. And I'll roll that cable inside my steel wire armour. And that's going to get it to where I want to go the next step. Try and even out the spread if it's gone wrong. You don't want all your wire armours clumped up on one side, you want them to spread out evenly. With that now done, I'm going to fight this white bit of flex. Well, it's not white flex, but you know what I mean. Fight with this, get it through into the gland. There we go. Next, you want to tighten that nut over. Careful it's not cross-threaded. Make sure you're getting a good bite on it. At this point, you'll need to get yourself a spanner, tighten it down with a spanner as well. Once I'm happy it's good and tight enough, I can push my shroud over it. Next, I would use cable cleats. Hook them over my cable and use that to secure my cable down. Last thing I would do would be to go ahead and actually terminate to my device. When it comes to cutting this white shearing, treat it like flex. You've worked with flex by this point, so you snip round the outside. It's stranded conductors. We may get you to put a crimp on it, we may not. With this type of cable, it's not necessary. With thinner strands of cable, yes it is, but with this, it may not be necessary, but it can be good practice to do so. So you might put, you might crimp it, you might not crimp it. Only other things in that, when we do this, you make sure if you've got 3-core, you are given brown, black and grey. They are 3-phase colours. We need it to be a line in, we need a switch line, and we need an earth. They're not the right colours. We don't have single phase cable, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to identify the cables that are in there using some sleeving. General practice, you take the black and you use the black as the earth. Even though if you are aware of what DC colours are, you might think that black would be best suited to be neutral. That is not the given practice. You use the black as the earth. I'm not going to go over further how to terminate it. It's the same as the flex you've used before. You'll have an example board if you want to check it, but the steel wire armour is the new bit. Good luck with it.